You're standing at the corner of Orange Avenue and Beach Street, Daytona Beach, Trayvon Martin Justice Rally. Your sign says, "Hey George, I've got a hoodie. Guess I'm suspicious." Yours is Trayvon is the victim, not Zimmer. Tell me, what is justice for Trayvon?
That's a very difficult question to answer because I'm not sure there is any justice for Trayvon. What we do know is that in most religions there is a concept of making restitution in order to be absolved of your sins, so to speak. Now, I'm sure that when George Zimmerman got up in the morning, he didn't intend to kill Trayvon Martin, but I'm equally sure that when he got out of the car with a loaded gun, given the circumstances of his history, you know, wannabe police officer and things like that, that he made it inevitable that there would be a situation that came down to that, especially when he disobeyed or didn't concur with the 9/11 operator's suggestion that he stay in the car and wait for the police. And I don't see any remorse, so I wonder where that restitution is. Even remorse would be restitution.
You know, I've asked Pastor Durham and his wife and several others that have organized this event, and I guess the question I continue to try to answer is, we can stand on the corner, we can go on social media and say justice for Trayvon, but if we can't identify and define exactly what that justice is, aren't we simply spinning our wheels? Aren't we simply going over and over the same thing? We have to be able to define what is constituting justice for Trayvon for this thing to go.
Oh, okay, so what I would suggest is that if the Justice Department initiated an investigation as far as a civil rights violation, that would perhaps move in the right direction. Obviously, we can't take a life necessarily because a life was taken, although that's the ultimate price that one ought to pay for taking a life, okay? If it was done with intent. I don't know if it was done with intent. But if the Justice Department would open an investigation and pursue this, certainly a child, and he was a child legally, certainly a child has a civil right, a white child or a black child has a civil right to take a walk in his neighborhood, to get a soft drink. And I think his civil rights were violated right down the line, if anyone thinks differently.
Do you think maybe the Justice Department is looking for a way out? The FBI has already determined from an investigation last year that there's absolutely no evidence to support a claim of racism or racial animus on the part of George Zimmerman. So how do you go from that to basically the only thing that could be done federally would be to charge him as a hate crime? And, you know, let's face it, we don't see a whole lot out there that would support that type of charge. So how do we get justice for Trayvon? I know Pastor Durham said that he feels justice would be ultimately having the Justice Department hold George Zimmerman accountable, which the jury did not do. But how do we do that?
I think to go way back to the beginning of your question, you'd have to go and put a lot of faith in the FBI's findings. And, you know, there's objective evidence and there's subjective evidence, and the opinion, if you will, that there wasn't a civil rights violation is just that, an opinion. Some of the forensic evidence might be hard evidence, you know, lack of or existing, but the opinion that civil rights were not violated certainly doesn't wash with me. I think his civil rights were clearly violated. And again, if it was a white child and he was stopped because he was wearing a hoodie, I think a child has a right to take a walk in his neighborhood, and I think that's certainly a civil right. I think one of the big problems in this country is that we attach the word civil right only to black issues and black people. Don't white people have civil rights also? Aren't we one race?
Right. You know, you brought up if it was a white child, and I asked Pastor Durham and others the same question. Sabrina Fulton, Tracy Martin, Ben Crump, prosecutors, everyone has said this is not about race. It never was about race. But yet it seems that we continue to go back to the racial aspect of this in order to move the ball forward or keep it rolling. Are we not disrespecting the justice for Trayvon Martin by continuing to return to the racial aspect of it?
But you have to ask yourself, if Trayvon were white, would he have been killed? And I think the answer to that is absolutely not.
And you guys are?
Sue Ginthner, Edgewater, Florida.
Okay.
And Jack Wrightington.
Thank you. I'll give you a card where we're going to put this up.